up, guys? Welcome back to the DMV channel. I'm Jeff Dixon. Isaiah's behind the camera, and today we are going to depower the rack of a Miata. But first, we got to clean all this up, and I love it. I am surrounded by my life's passion. But let's get to work. I don't know anything about having a YouTube channel, much less a successful YouTube channel. So it dawned on me the other day, how can I learn these things? YouTube. So I started studying and learning about YouTube channels from YouTube. And I learned quite a bit. PewDiePie taught me. And he's got like the biggest channel there is. And he says it's all about something called a click-through rate. Isaiah, what's a click-through rate? He said you need thumbnails that are like clickbait, but not quite clickbait. Thumbnails that make people want to click, but they're not actually a lie. So I thought, well, what does everybody want? We all want to live. Yeah, that's the one.
I don't think this is what he means.
Then he said it's all about audience retention, people staying on your video and watching it. So I thought with this video, I'd try to be a little bit more organized. I actually have a list. And a little bit more entertaining, and I'd try to actually teach you how to do something. Our normal videos aren't really trying to teach you how to do anything. They're just showing you the process we go through. This time, I actually want to teach you how to do something, and we're going to learn how to depower a rack so that you don't die while you're driving your car, I think. To depower a Miata rack, you're going to need a few things. You're not going to need anything very special, but we're going to need some sweet tea, snap ring pliers, some grease, and normal sockets, and that's about it. The first thing on our list to do is remove the rack. So let's remove the rack. All right, now that you have your rack out of the car and you've got it on your workbench, it's time to get it cleaned up. Oh, got it all polished up now. Okay, now we have the rack out of the car, we have it cleaned up, and we're going to disassemble it. They have little retaining clips right here. You saw, I just beat them back a little bit with a screwdriver. And then we're going to take these off. Few whacks with a hammer got it. Probably not the right way to do this. But I couldn't find a wrench to stack on it because these are the, you know, those kind of wrenches. So Isaiah and I want to do races with this car, and depowering it cuts out the power steering issues that you have with cars. And I want to do stuff like drag week and LS Fest and do long trips with this car. So no power steering is just one less thing to break on the trip. Finally got it. All right. That's the snap ring. So now we've got to get this nut off. I got this cap off the bottom, and if you think about it, all the water from humidity is going to end up in the bottom of this. So I do know from other people that this bearing often gets rusted out, but they clean up well. I don't know, I'm hoping we can just clean this bearing out, but we'll get that out of there.
I think you should have loosened that other lock nut.
Yeah, I think you should, but I'm hoping that
All come off together.
yeah. Ah. Can't get it. I think I gotta loosen the lock nut. Man. I screwed that up bad. I stripped the bolt out. I rounded it off. We can salvage it, but I'm a little frustrated about it. We might cut a straight slot in there to salvage it and make it for a flathead screwdriver. Okay, we got to get this part off first. I knew that. I knew that. Okay, let's try it again. Woo! Got it! Okay, we got it loose. Man, I rounded the piss out of the top. That's pretty disappointing. I know where some other racks are. I might see if I can find that online. Sometimes you can find weird stuff like that online. And now we just pull this out. Looks like it's still in good shape. So this is the valve right here, and when you turn it to the right or to the left, the way this valve works is it allows fluid to go to one side of the rack or the other. All right, carefully pull that snap ring off. And then there's the valve right there. Some guys weld these up, they weld them together, and they say it helps with slop. This car didn't have a lot of miles on it. I think it was like 114, it wasn't a lot. I don't remember exactly. But boy, it doesn't feel like there's any slop in it to me. I almost don't want to weld it up. I see a lot of guys TIG this. It's actually probably not the best idea to TIG it because of the high heat penetration that a TIG causes. Might be better off MIGing it. But I don't honestly see a need to weld that up. So the last thing we have now for our disassembly is we need to pull the rack gear out, the ram. We need to pull this part out. And Mazda was smart. They put a little hole right here. And what that's for is you actually push the snap ring up. It's just a spring snap ring. Push it up and out, and then you can grab it and go around with it and pull it out. Don't lose it. And then this just pulls out. So I'm going to clean all this up a little bit, and that's it for our disassembly. One more thing, the bearing that we talked about is in the bottom there, and it pulls out pretty easy. It's right there, so we'll have a chance to clean that up, and it's not awesome. It was almost like there was sand in this thing, so I had to take it out and wash it in the garden hose. The bearings looked really good. They were really gritty, like a skateboard bearing with sand in it. I don't know, but they feel good now. But there's one more bearing in there, and it's got that gritty feeling, so I'm going to see if I can knock it out and hose it off, and then we'll put it back in. Looks like a socket will do the trick. Oh, look at that. Okay, I've got it all disassembled. Now it's time to do the depowering portion. If you think about this like a hydraulic ram, pushes one way or the other, this would be like the piston on the hydraulic ram. It's pressed on, it's slid on, and then this little ring is pressed around there. So it did have a snap ring. It looks like you can pop the snap ring and just slide this off, but you can't. It's actually pressed in after it's driven on. This is permanent. Once you do this, you are stuck with a manual rack on a Miata. The good news is there's lots of Miata racks out there, and there's lots of people that are remanufacturing them too, so they're pretty easy to find, so wasn't real worried about this. But that's it. I should have put cleaning in the disassembly step because we did a whole lot of cleaning on this. And now we want to make sure that we grease it when we put it back together, and I've got grease, and we keep our hands clean, and it should be pretty straightforward. I'm not going to weld this. This thing is like solid. A lot of people, I don't know why, they talk about there being slop in that. I don't know. Mine definitely does not have any slop in it. Okay, so we drove the bearing and seal down for the pinion. We greased it all up, drove it down with the socket. Now we've got to put the rack in. Lots of grease. Carefully slide that in. So turn it where you can see the gears through there, where when you slide this in, they're going to actually engage each other. So you do want to make sure you do that. Then we're going to take this and dollop a lot of grease on it. So I'm only greasing the parts right now that we're going to actually install, because I just hate all the grease everywhere, but that's how that goes. So I still have to figure out if we need this for a shim to keep it from coming out. So I'm gonna look at that for a little bit. Yep, I'm gonna put this in there. I think it's important to keep this shaft from shoving up to the top. So it's not like it's gonna cause that much friction or drag. So I'm just gonna put it in. So I'm gonna put quite a bit of grease on this and then put it back in. At least I won't wonder at night when I'm driving this down the road if I made a mistake. I'm putting a lot on this. These are meant to be soaked in oil and in grease. There's no longer going to be hydraulic fluid going through parts of this. Not that there was in this area. There actually wouldn't have been, but anyway, liberal amount of grease, no big deal. Okay, putting our top seal and bearing back in. I just got to drive it down a little bit. Suck our snap ring in. Probably don't need pliers to do this, but there it is. And it's not seated all the way. You can kind of see that. So we're just going to go boop, push it down, and now it's seated. So that's all there is on that. And then we put this little dust cap back on. And that is done. So now we've got the bottom bearing. We've got it all greased up, put it in. And this one should just drop in. It doesn't need to be driven in. And then we've got the bottom bearing nut. This is well, I call these a squish nut, but it's a type of lock nut. You can see it's slightly deformed. So that's all that's going to hold this on. We don't want to over tighten this and crush it. So there's probably a spec of how tight to get it, but I mean, I don't know what it is. Sloppy mechanic. Ooh, don't say that. That's another YouTube channel. Okay, that pretty much takes care of that. So now, if you remember, we had this thing. So it serves two parts. It's a guide, like a bushing and a seal to keep the hydraulic fluid from blowing out. Put a little grease on the seal. At this point, it's not to keep hydraulic fluid in, it's just to keep any moisture or dirt out. So now we're just gonna work this in. Oh, it's gonna be easy. It's gonna be easy, you'll see. There it goes. There, that actually wasn't too bad. Okay, now for the last part. This little thing puts pressure on the back of the rack and forces the teeth of the rack and the pinion to mesh. So without this, you just have the slop of the teeth. Choo 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 choo, little teeth chatter. So what we do, and this rack, believe it or not, doesn't really have too much of that. It's probably because it's full of grease and it's in really good shape. But what we do is we put this in there, and there's specs as to how much pressure this gets and all that. I'm going by feel on this. And if it's wrong, we can adjust it in the car. It's not a big deal. So I'm gonna shove, this is our last chance for grease. I'm gonna shove that hole completely full of grease. I can't help it, it's just the way I am. I like a lot of grease. And then we're gonna put this in, and it's gonna squish the grease down in there. Okay. And then if you remember, we stripped that out. We screwed it up. So I'm gonna take off my gloves and I'm gonna grind a flathead screwdriver type slot in that. So I'm gonna do that real quick. I'll be back. So I couldn't really come up with a good way to hold this, and I was afraid to put it in my vise. So I thought the best thing I could do is just screw it in there, and we'll cover it with a rag, the fragile bits, and we're just gonna make a quick, accurate cut. And the only point in this is to give us a place to stick a screwdriver and adjust this. So I'm just gonna make a little groove. Here we go. I don't think it's too bad. Okay, so I'm gonna put some grease in this. Whoop. Do you know I like a dollop of grease? Paper towel. Wipe my hands, put this spring back in there. Then this goes in there. We'll guess on the tension. If it's wrong, we will adjust it in the car when we're driving. Ah! Very tight. Okay. I like it. So we're going to reinstall these, and see there's a little tooth on each side of this keeper. Okay, we're going to line up that keeper. And as we twist this in, we want that, oops, we want to keep that straight. There it goes. So it went in there. I think this is going to work. Okay, and then we'll tighten this and beat those back down. So now, got an idea. Big channies solve big problems. Look at that. Get that in there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's doing it. Where's my big fat Sharpie? Isaiah, where's my Sharpie?
I have no idea.
Here it is. Let's go to the list. Okay, so we skipped welding the pinion. I'm gonna leave that as an option for you guys. So I'm gonna cross it out. Weld the bungs. We haven't welded the bungs yet. We did cut here. Boop. We reassembled. Boop. So let's weld the bungs. You could put these back on and not weld these up. I've also seen guys shove these full of silicone and stuff. I think that's real tacky. What I'm gonna do is cut this off, this little banjo thing, weld it up in there. It is steel, I checked, put it back on. We're gonna cut all these off, weld them in, put them back in. We are missing one. It's probably on the power steering pump. So we gotta run to the storage unit. Boop. I'm gonna give you a storage unit tour, and we're gonna come back, weld these and put them on, and then we're gonna be done with this project. Yay! All right, let's go to the storage unit. I guess it's been a little while since we've been here. Look at all the cobwebs. Okay, hope I don't get bit by a brown recluse. Welcome to our storage unit. So let me give you a tour. Here's some Miata parts. Here's some LS parts. There's some more Miata and LS parts. Here's some Miata part. This is the rat rod. And that pretty much is our tour. And we're back. So we've got this. Hated to cut it. It was good hose. But we're going to do the... Oh, I was getting nervous. It goes on this side. We're going to do the same with this. Cut them all off, weld them all back, plug them all up, weld them on. Anyway, let's get to it. Okay, we are almost done. We got the bungs. Bungs are all in. Now we got to put our floppy boots on here, and I got some new tie rod ball joint things. So let's get those on and call it night. Okay, we got our bungs all in, and now it's time to put on our rack bellows. Boom! Those things are kind of fun. I'm probably going to use zip ties instead of those so I can reuse them. And also, we have our tie rod, new tie rod ball joints. Moog brand for racing. This is for racing. So that's going to be fun to get that on and clean. And we are just getting one step closer to getting this on the car. But okay, let's get to work. That is it, man. It is smooth. It turns free, and it is depowered. That is it, guys. That is how you depower a rack. And let me go get the list. So here's what it takes to depower a rack. Remove the rack, clean the rack, disassemble the rack, weld the bungs, cut here, reassemble. Oh, we got to reinstall the rack. All right. Reinstall the rack. Check. Like the video and subscribe. That's it. We'll see you next week.